UFC Fight Night Vegas 99, Hernandez versus Pereira takes place this weekend, and I'm going to go through every single fight on the card, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main event, giving my prediction and breakdown for every single fight on the card, starting with the early prelim opener of Austen Lane versus Robelis Despaingne. It's always good to start with a rhyme. I'm going to go with, it's very hard to pick Robelis Despaingne to win a fight after his last performance, because there is a weakness in his game that will be exploited many times over in this game at the heavyweight division. However, he didn't get finished. You know what I mean? He stayed in the fight. And Waldo Cortez Acosta, who beat him, is kind of a proven heavyweight. You know what I mean? They did kind of, you know, have him beat Parisian, which kind of proves nothing because he's one of those heavyweights where you're just a big fat guy. Like, you're not actually a martial artist. You're not actually a fighter. You're just some random big fat guy that's in the cage. So he beat him, and then they gave him Waldo Cortez Acosta, who is somewhat proven. Like, I know he's been beaten by, like, arguably Jared Vandera, you know? Oh! Heavyweight MMA! But hear me out, you guys. He's somewhat proven. You know what I mean? Outside of his low kick problems, he's got good boxing. He's got a solid chin. He's somewhat athletic, even though he has got a belly on him. Really, UFC heavyweights are just scraping the bottom of the barrel when it comes to just heavyweight talent in general in any sport. But I am going to go over Robelis Despaingne here because Austen Lane, listen, Waldo Cortez Acosta had a history of showing that he had a pretty decent chin. You know, he's taken some big shots off some big guys. And he took some shots off Robelis Despaingne and just managed to get the takedowns. Austen Lane has a history, to put it lightly, of just getting knocked out whenever a big guy lands something on him. Now, I know that he could potentially get takedowns here on Robelis Despaingne. Do I think he'll finish him from there? No. I've just got to assume that... Listen, the Tafar brothers are an embarrassment to heavyweight MMA as well. And Lane get chinned by Tafar in his last fight badly, I believe. I'm going to double check. No, he got chinned by Deniz, Janata Deniz, right? He put him away, and then Tafar put him away before. So there's just a history of being KO'd. And that's just a worrying thing when you're going in there against a guy the size of Despaingne, who's no doubt, you know, he's bigger, he's rangier than Lane, but he's going to have definitely been straight back to the gym. We have a weakness. We're working on takedown defense the entire time. I don't think he's going to lose his ability on the feet because of that. It's kind of good that he had to address that now rather than when he got to the top and got embarrassed in like a high-profile fight. They're both 36 on the come up at heavyweight. God, sometimes makes me want to go on a run myself, chat. You know what I mean? I'm joking. I'd never. Food's just too good. But Robelis Despaingne is going to get this one done by TKO in the first round. That's my prediction. Decent underdog odds on Lane, but Robelis Despaingne should get this one done by TKO. We move on. Melissa Martinez versus Alice Ardelean. Now, I was actually somewhat impressed by Alice Ardelean's ability in her fight with the Irish woman that she fought. Shauna Bannon. There you go. Mix the names together. All good. Melissa Martinez lost to Elise Reed in her debut. Now, Alice Ardelean's somewhat big. She's well proportioned. Okay, 600,000 followers on Instagram proves that. Okay, guys. Do your research. You know what I mean? But I did a lot of extensive research going into this matchup. I'll tell you that much. She got ragdolled by Elise Reed in moments. She did all right. It was actually a pretty close fight. She got dropped by Elise Reed. Ugh. That's no good, you know. I'm going to go Alice Ardelean. Trains at a decent gym. Melissa Martinez is good. She's younger. Maybe I should go with her just because she's younger. But I thought Alice Ardelean looked all right against Shauna Bannon. And Shauna Bannon was supposed to be this good prospect. Who did Shauna Bannon lose to again? I might switch who I'm going to pick here. Because this is just how women's MMA is going these days. She lost to Bruna. I don't mind I lost to Bruna Brazil. We just saw what she did to Molly McCann. The great Molly McCann. Oh! Let's go, UFC. What a great promotion. I'm going Alice Ardelean. I think she's a decent underdog here. So I'll go with her to win this fight. I think she'll be a little bit too physical for Melissa Martinez. and will likely get takedowns in moments against her. I'm going to go with Alice Ardelean. Not to mention, I know she has some losses, but she fought like Diana Belbita in her second fight. I know that the great Diana Belbita is not really one of these legendary names that you shouldn't mind losing to, but she also lost to like Zhang Weili, you know? So she's been in there with some good comp. I'm going to go with Alice Ardelean getting this one done. A little bit too physical for Melissa Martinez. We move on. Jessica Penne versus Elise Reed. I just don't want to pick Jessica Penne to win a fight. Now, some may say that I'm being clouded by this, but I just don't want to. And I might leave it there when it comes to... She's 41 years old. Could not be less attractive to Mr. Barry. It's one of those... switch those numbers around and maybe be more interested. But I'm going to have to go against the great legend of the game, Jessica Penne here, and potentially side with Elise Reed to get this one done, because if she, of course, beat the great Melissa Martinez, who I'm not picking in the very next fight, in the very previous fight to this one. So what we dealing with when it comes to the great Jessica Penne here? What kind of results are we seeing here? So I'm seeing a submission loss to Tabitha Ricci, finished by Tabitha Ricci's. Unless you're Callum Walsh, that's a loss. That's a real bad loss, you know? Emily Ducote beat her very convincingly. She failed 8 takedowns in that fight, and she beat Karolina Kowalkiewicz. She beat Lupi Godinez in a robbery, from what I remember. You know what, yeah? I might just go Jessica Penne. Taller, larger, rangier. Elise Reed's garbage. You know, I'll take Jessica Penne. Is she like an underdog here? I don't actually normally check the odds beforehand, like right before the card breakdown, so I don't get like swayed by looking at the odds and thinking, oh, I've got to pick an underdog. I like to just happen to pick the underdog once I mentally lock the picks in. My face is probably really bright right now. Oh, great. Well, they're not even on the breakdown thing. Jessica Penne's an underdog. You know what? I'll take another underdog there. I'm going to go for some women's MMA underdogs. That always ends well. That's a recipe for greatness right there. So I'm going to go with Jessica Penne. We move on. Joselyne Edwards versus Tamires Vidal. It just keeps getting better and better. I love these cards. It gets good on the main card, though. There are some decent fights on this card, and I love the main event, but God, this is like Shawshank Redemption here, guys. We're crawling through the sewers to get to our freedom at the end, where finally we get a decently okay Apex card. Good Lord, this is embarrassing. Melissa Gato beat Tamires Vidal. Montserrat Hendon beat Tamires Vidal, but she's huge for women's bantamweight, and she got a bunch of takedowns in that fight. Joselyne Edwards is all right, though. She lost to Ailin Perez. Lost to Nora Canole. Arguably a robbery, but no, Nora Canole did more damage. She beat Lucy Pudilova, the great Lucy Pudilova, guys. The legend herself. The woman, the myth, the legend, Lucy Pudilova, 14-11. And who could forget she beat the great Ramona Pascal? And I actually have a ton of respect for Ramona Pascal for many reasons, none of which are our fighting ability. 2 reasons, but that's behind us and towards the lower half of the body. I don't know, guys. I don't know what to go with in it. Like, Flippe. I don't have any mayonnaise on the desk. This is dire circumstances. I guess I could flip a... People get angry at the way I say this, so I'll say it Americanly. I'll flip a tin of multivitamins to decide who will win the fight. If it lands face up, I'll go with... what do you know? I'm picking... I'm going to go Joselyne Edwards. More experienced in the UFC. she at least has some wins in the UFC. I was going to go with her anyway. I just think she's a little bit better in general. Vidal's not proven that she is in any way good other than looking very masculine. So I'll go Joselyne Edwards. Rangy, tall for the division, closer to her prime, fighting wise. You know what I'm saying? Pushing 40. We move on. Brad Katona versus Gene Matsumoto. Surely Gene Matsumoto's got to get this one done. I was very impressed with him in his debut against Dan Argueta, but it's Dan Argueta. How is he still around? You know? How is this guy still here? That's the question we're all wondering, it seems. I'll go Gene Matsumoto, though, because I've just been very impressed by him. He's like the whitest looking Brazilian I've seen. I'm sure there's others, but he's of the very European. There's variants of Brazilian. You know, you got the Hadley and Pavers, like an Indian variant of Brazilian, and then Lyoto Machida's like a Japanese variant, and Anderson Silva, your African variants. Luque's more of a French guy. Matsumoto's got that sort of Ronaldo-esque appearance to him, but somehow in Brazil, but then the surname is like Konnichiwa, you know? I don't know. Let's talk about the matchup, guys. Brad Katona versus Gene Matsumoto. I just see talent in Gene Matsumoto's performances, to be honest with you guys. Like, he got a big win in his debut over Dan Argueta, got the finish, and he looked amazing. He honestly looked amazing. I'm going to double check some stats on this, because I'm fairly certain he was schooling the guy beforehand as well, if I remember correctly. Gene Matsumoto. He was doing great. And Argueta was getting a lot of takedowns, and he was shucking a lot of them off and working his way back up. Oh, dude, it's tough to say, isn't it? It really is tough to say. But I am going to go Matsumoto here over Brad Katona. I just don't see any talent in Brad Katona's game, and the guys that he's beaten are just guys without talent. You know, Jesse Butler. I know I picked the great Jesse Butler to score a win over Brad Katona, but I think that just goes to show how little I believe in this guy as a competitor. Canadian descent, that never spells good for a UFC fighter in general. Just typically, if you see someone's from Canada, they're about to take an L. Garrett Armfield beat him pretty convincingly. I don't see much talent in Armfield's game. I mean, he's got somewhat talented boxing, I'd say. I mean, he beat Cody Gibson in a very scrappy fight. That's not a good look. Cody Gibson could have won that one. It's not a good look. I'm going to go Gene Matsumoto, 15-0, undefeated, up-and-coming prospect. Longer reach by 4 inches than Katona. I mean, how can you have a shorter reach than Katona? Literally less than women's reach for his height. Kind of insane. Gene Matsumoto will get this one done. 15-0, undefeated, 25-year-old on the come-up. Didn't take his first fight in the UFC under great circumstances. Now he's going to have a full training camp. Just made a UFC paycheck. I've got him winning this fight, you guys. We move on to another fight up the card. Matheus Nicolau versus Assu Almabayev. You know what? I know that it's very easy to just say, Nicolau's had his time. Assu Almabayev's going to win this fight. But I'm going to go Matheus Nicolau. I don't see him getting taken down here and held down by Almabayev. I really don't. Jose Johnson's just like horrible at fighting, which is why he tries to make flyweight at about 6'1" or whatever he is. There's no greater showing that you aren't built for this than draining yourself to look like you're about to say you're the captain now, just to compete where you can maybe have a chance. So I'm going to go against Assu Almabayev. He also fought CJ Vergara, got a bunch of takedowns on him, but Nicolau's got sick takedown defense and a lot of experience in the game, and he's in his prime. And I know he gets chinned here. I don't see Almabayev chinning him on the feet. Don't see it happening. Not really Almabayev's thing. More of a grappler, wear you down, grind you out of the fight. Does throw some wild stuff, but I think I can see Nicolau slowing this fight right down, stuffing a bunch of takedowns, out technically pointing Assu Almabayev on the feet. I actually really think Matheus Nicolau's a very good fighter, you know. He has a win over Manel Cap that could be a robbery. Got chinned by Alex Perez, but was doing all right before that. He's had other good performances in his career. You know, he got chinned by Royval. I mean, there's a lot of chinnings here at flyweight. When do I ignore them? But he chinned the great unchinnable Matt Schnell, if you guys remember correctly. I've just seen him have a bunch of great performances where I'm like, this guy's got legit talent and timing and rhythm to his game. Yeah, I'm going to side with Matheus Nicolau here. I think this is a little bit too much too soon for Assu Almabayev. So I'll go with Nicolau. I think he's a well-rounded, not to be chinned by an Almabayev type of flyweight. You got to have some kind of Royval, goofy, I'm going to throw a big knee up the middle type thing to you. Almabayev's going to try and get takedowns. Nicolau's got elite takedown defense. Been doing this for a very long time now. I can see him being the guy that's a little too experienced that wins like a split decision here type of thing. So I'm going to go with Nicolau. No matter what the odds say, I'm just going to lean towards Nicolau in this matchup. We move on. Up the card, Darren Elkins versus Daniel Pineda. We've still got these guys signed on the roster, have we? I'm going to go with Daniel Pineda. Darren Elkins is... God help him, you know? He's been taking a lot of damage. Okay, guys? He doesn't got it anymore. The UFC keeps a lot of these guys around, and I'm like, why? You're paying them hundreds of thousands. I get that people are going to say, well, you know, shout out to the UFC. They really respect their legends. But then I'm also thinking to myself, like, come on now. Let's be reasonable about this. The guy's not winning fights, and you're paying him hundreds of thousands to be in the UFC against names like TJ Brown and Daniel Pineda. Daniel Pineda's another one of these guys, but I think we've got to finally let Elkins off the roster once he loses this one, because Pineda will still put on decent performances against Nathaniel Wood. He had a good performance against Nathaniel Wood, you know. He had him in some troubling moments. He had some good positions, grappling-wise, and round 3, I think he ended up like dominating the round, if I'm not mistaken. It was a really good performance from him there. So, yeah. Yeah, Daniel Pineda, I reckon's getting this one done. Alex Caceres ended up beating him, but stayed in that fight. Gave it a good fight. I just don't think, I don't think Darren Elkins beats a Tucker Lutz at this point. I don't think he gives Nathaniel Wood a decent fight, and stays in there again. I think Nathaniel Wood would school Darren Elkins at this point, and destroy him. So yeah, I'm going to go against Darren Elkins in 2024, October of 2024, when he's 40 years old. I know Pineda's not much younger, but feels like he's got less miles on the clock. So I'm going to go with Daniel Pineda getting this one done by TKO or submission. I can honestly see him destroying Elkins' lead leg with calf kicks and then getting a guillotine at some point off some lazy-ass takedown. So I'm going to go Daniel Pineda getting this one done. We move on. Brady Heistand versus Jake Hadley. Now, when I pick against Jake Hadley, I want to be a UFC fighter. Can't not do the impression. When I pick against Jake Hadley, he seems to win. And I want Jake Hadley to win because he's repping the UK. Okay? Very proud of him. And I had a lot of hopes for him going into the UFC at flyweight. And now he seems to have this resurgence at bantamweight, But Brady Heistand is not Cowden Loughran. Brady Heistand, he isn't all that good though, is he? Dana Batgarell's not all that good. Garrett Armfield's not that good. I don't see Hadley getting taken down here by Brady Heistand, but I do think Brady Heistand's going to have a ton of experience over him. Hadley's not got the best offensive grappling, so he's going to be on the defense here. If Brady wants to take this to the ground, that's what's going to be happening. Brady's a lot bigger than him. Got a bit of reach to play with. Do I see Hadley putting him away on the feet? Do I see Hadley submitting him off of bottom position? Maybe that's where there's money. A submission off of his back by Hadley, or a TKO on the... I don't see a TKO on the feet. So I just think Heistand will lead the dance, and this will be a decision loss that gets worse and worse as time goes on for Hadley. He'll have some steam in round 1 that keeps Heistand at bay, but then Heistand will keep going with the pressure and the cardio, and I'm going to say a 29-28 based on the last 2 rounds for Brady Heistand of finally getting off some offensive grappling, and Hadley maybe just giving up a little bit too much time on bottom position, looking for like a go-go plata that he loves so much that just doesn't seem to be working. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to go with Brady Heistand getting this one done. We move on. Whoa. Charles Johnson versus Mudaerji. Charles Johnson's had a lot to say in the build-up. He said something about Asakura's only beaten a bunch of rice makers. Really going down the Floyd Mayweather-Pacquiao route here. So this would be some good opportunity for Mudaerji to get some vicious revenge over Charles Johnson. Charles Johnson, I reckon, wins it though. Bias aside, he had some comments about Asakura. This could be a fun, when trash talking goes wrong, and no one's gonna have anything to say about Johnson saying it because he's not the right type to have a problem with saying it about a guy like Mudaerji or Asakura. So I'm gonna go Charles Johnson. All stuff aside, I think he's just better. I think he's been looking really good recently in his career. He had a while before he put some momentum together because I feel like there's a... Listen, you go through Charles Johnson's career, even though I don't ever want him to win because he just looks weird and I prefer all of the fighters that he's fighting a lot of the time. Hadley, Joshua Van, I mean, I can't root for him against these guys, you know. The guy beat Azat Maxim. That's a decent win. You know? And then when you look back in his career at some of the losses, this needs to be said about Charles Johnson. The Rafael Estevan fight, he arguably could have got that fight on damage. All of a sudden, the damage rule goes out the window when Charles Johnson fights, it feels like. Cody Durden fight, very close. Durden just got so many takedowns, though. But still, he did a lot of damage and stayed in that fight. But Durden was relentless in that fight. That's got to be said. Makayev, dude, he massively outlanded. If that's scored as Batista Aldo is scored, with the little taps to the knee and stuff, Charles Johnson gets that fight. Go back and watch that fight. Makayev got takedowns, but Johnson was the only one working in the clinch out of the two of them. O'Day Osborne fight, I thought he won that one, and that's come up as a loss on his record. I'm going to go Charles Johnson. The win over Joshua Van's huge. The win over Jake Hadley's big at flyweight, especially he got a knockdown over Hadley. That's pretty good. I'm going to go with Charles Johnson getting this one done. Mudaerji just seems very weak. He's quite quick for the division. He's very athletic, but he doesn't seem to... If Matt Schnell's showing how tough he is against you, we've got a power problem, okay? We've got a big power problem in our hands. And dude hasn't really had a reasonably relevant win. You know, he got smushed and destroyed by Tim Elliott. Really impressive performance by Tim Elliott there. Lost to Matt Schnell. It's 2022, bro. Even back then, it was not cool. Beat Zaruk Adashev by decision. The guy was 4-3 in the UFC. 4-3 and in the UFC, not in the UFC. He was a 4-3 recorded opponent that was just somehow in the UFC. I have no idea how. Maybe Ali Abdelaziz called in a favor. Mudaerji gets that done, but doesn't look impressive. He beat Malcolm Gordon. He beat Andre Sukumtart. I mean, the great O'Malley beat him. Lost to Lewis. I'm just going to go against him. I'm going against Mudaerji here. He's big and rangy, but Johnson is as well. So I think that'll take away Mudaerji's main success. So I'm actually going to go with Johnson. And I reckon he can take this one to the ground and do some work if he needs to. So I'll say Johnson by later rounds finish is what I'll say here. We move on. Rob Font versus Kyler Phillips. I've got to go against Rob Font at this point just because he's shown so many ways that he can be beaten. That's my main problem with Rob Font in his career so far. He's been TKOable, but then again, you look at the people that he's been TKOable against, and it kind of excuses it a little bit, right? Because you see, okay, he looked a little chinny against Jose Aldo. Oh my God, he looked kind of chinny against Davis and Figueiredo, and Sandhagen had one arm in their fight and worked him in the grappling offensively without much skill to it either. Right? That needs to be mentioned. Just worked him in the grappling easily. Really dull fight that would only get praise and lack of trashing by Dana if Sandhagen was Sandhagen's surname. But I just can't see that. He was so easily manhandled by Sandhagen and shown such a weakness in his game. 37 years old. Phillips can hold him down if he wants to here. He's got explosive takedowns. The guy was scoring decently good takedowns on Song Yudong, who was stuffing all of Sandhagen's takedowns. I know it was a evolution of Song Yudong. He probably got better by then, a few years later and a few years before and all this type of thing that you go through. But At the end of the day, Song Yudong's got solid takedown defense. Yan has shown that maybe that's a thing of the past, but Yan can grapple, you know? It just feels like Rob Font is a step behind, grappling-wise, and Phillips has really good entries that are explosive. I can see him getting some of those entries off on Rob Font, and I just trust his wild style here. Font's really good. Font could exploit him. I know the Paver fight was a bit sketchy for Phillips, but he really did gas himself out going for what looked like a 10-7 round over Howley and Paver in round 1, and then really gassed as the fight went on, and it ended up being a draw, I believe. But, yeah, I'm going to go with Kyler Phillips over Rob Font. A little bit more dynamic on the feet. Font's a really good boxer, and is probably a better boxer than Phillips, but Phillips is no joke, and he passed the Munoz test with flying colours. The Pedro Munoz test is what I'm talking about, and that's a very impressive thing to do. You know, he really made Munoz look like, okay, time to hang it up, big bro. You know, like, it's time to retire Unk, not big bro. Don't know why I said. I was going to say little bro, realized it was wrong and thought the opposite would be correct. But Unk was the reference that I was going to make to Pedro Munoz there. Yeah, he's passed him with flying colours, man. He really has. And he's shown offensive grappling capability. He's shown that he can get back up off of bottom position. I don't see Font getting takedowns. That's Phillips' option here. He's 29. He's coming into his prime. He trains a lot with Sean O'Malley. That's a great training partner to have. A long, rangy guy with good, snappy hands. You're facing Rob Font. You know what I mean? So I'm going to go with Kyler Phillips. I think he's very good, and I think he'll be getting this one done over Rob Font, mixing things up and getting a decision win. We move on. Anthony Hernandez versus Michel Pereira. Anthony Hernandez genuinely has looked like he might have gone on to be some kind of dominant grappler for the division, and honestly, against other matchups, I reckon he would have done. Like, I really think if he didn't run into Michel Pereira, spoiler, I'm going to pick Michel Pereira here. I tried to build it up, but I just realized I gave it away. If he hadn't have gone into Michel Pereira on the way to the top, this guy's making it to the top, and even after this loss, he'll probably make it somewhere near the top as well, but I think Michel Pereira is going to make it to the top as well, and Michel Pereira's got welterweight skill level, you know, where he was capable in the welterweight division. Never made it to the highest of heights, but he was a very capable welterweight on the roster. And I think if he could have made the weight against Wonderboy healthy, I think he would have beaten him. In hindsight, I do think he would have beaten him. I think he would have been able to mix in takedowns as well. Even though Wonderboy's takedown defense is no joke, I could have seen that. I'm going to go with Michel Pereira over Anthony Hernandez. I think Hernandez is very good. I think Hernandez is probably going to be a future top 10 guy, a mainstay of the top 10. He might go down as like a future better-chinned Brunson, but softer-bodied. And that's what this comes down to. You know, Holland hurt him with a knee to the body. He's been hurt to the body against Roman Kopylov in their fight. And a lot of people had Kopylov winning that, but I went with Anthony Hernandez because I knew that Kopylov had a bit of a problem wrestling defense-wise. I don't think Pereira has a problem wrestling defense-wise. Cardio-wise, maybe, so it's a 5-rounder. But Pereira's not needed 5 minutes yet in his middleweight run. And he's fighting guys that aren't half bad. Now, some of them have been layups, Sehor Pereira, but we just saw Cesar Almeida have to go 3 rounds with him, and I poke him to do it, you know? Pereira puts him away immediately in that fight. Immediately puts him away in that fight. Immediately puts away Andre Petrosky. Immediately puts away another person in the middleweight division. Surely I'm not just basing this off of 2 wins. There must have been another one in between that was Mikhail Alexeychuk that he puts away in the first round and gets a choke win over. Hurts him to the body. You know what I'm saying? I can just so see Michel Pereira hurting him to the body early and getting a finish. Anyone else? Who's with me? Huh? I'm looking for support here. Can anyone else just see that? You know when you can just see a sequence and you can't deny the visions that you have? Sometimes you think about matchups while you're cooking your eggs in the morning, or you're just having a poo and like thinking, oh, I wonder who wins that fight, you know? Weird time to be thinking about fighting, but as an MMA fan, you open up your phone, you check the schedule. That's going to be a good fight in a few weeks. You know, I'll keep an eye on that one. I'm waiting for an Uber. Some shit like that, you know? I'm acting like I go out a lot. I don't, but, you know, when I'm in an Uber, I'm fucking checking the UFC schedule in the back. Okay? That's how it goes. And when I think about this fight, I'm like, damn, Anthony Hernandez is a really good middleweight. But I can so see Michel Pereira hurting him to the body and getting an early finish. Can so see that happening. I'm going to go Michel Pereira. Early finish. And it will be by, like, him stuffing a takedown early, getting into over-unders, kneeing the hell out of the body of Hernandez, hurting him there, and then maybe getting a guillotine or a rear naked or some kind of explosion-based finish. It could even just be a TKO. I'm going to go Michel Pereira. I think he's too athletic, too strong, too powerful. It's going to take someone pretty decent to beat him in this division. And I think Hernandez, even if he loses this, the winner of this is going to become a new top 5 contender. If Baralho and Amavov can get there, the winner of this definitely can. I think if Hernandez loses this even, I think he'll go on to become a top contender. He might be like a new Hermansson or a new Branson, as I said. So, like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Toodle Pip. I'll see you later. Like, I wouldn't mind. Like, if I saw it on the cards, it's Michel Pereira versus Robert Whittaker. Are you confident in Robert Whittaker, guys? I'm probably going to pick him to beat Chimaev because I don't think Chimaev's all that. And I think his last few performances have kind of proved it. Usman took it on a week's notice up a division. And Burns is, you know, we've seen a lot more people dominate Burns since then and get finishes over him. I know it was a war, but still. You guys, like, if you saw Anthony Hernandez, Robert Whittaker, I'm going Whittaker. See Michel Pereira Whittaker. I'm worried. I probably would go Whittaker, but I'm really worried, guys. I'm very worried for that. That worries me. He worries me, this guy, as a contender. And I'm going to pick him to win. I think he's a different beast without the weight cut. I think he's going to look big out there against Anthony Hernandez and get an early finish, probably by TKO or submission in the first round. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Toodle Pip. I'll see you later. Goodbye.